Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by a very special guest. Freshman from the Bemidji State women's hockey team, Kendra Fortin, joins the show today. Welcome to the podcast, Kendra, and how's everything going?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. How are things going? I know the season ended a few weeks ago. Is it nice not really, I guess, having just to focus on class, I guess, not really having to worry about the hockey aspect? I know there's probably some benefits to it, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely nice just as a freshman to kind of get my feet underneath me and kind of focus a little bit more on school. Obviously, when you're traveling every weekend, it's hard to be fully focused on just school. So it's nice to kind of get the best of both worlds where you can play hockey and you can also go to school. So we still live throughout the week. So we're still with the girls, which is super nice. But it's definitely a lot more low key now that the season's over.
Nice. And what have you been doing, I guess, since the season ended? Like, what kind of workouts does your team do during the month of March?
We just started. We just got back from spring break, so it was more of just like a mobility past couple of days. Just so some people went on trips, some people kind of stayed home, just so no one's hurting themselves before the off season. So again, more mobility kind of stuff, and we're probably going to do like a lot more strength stuff next week, but trying to lean things in nicely.
And what are your off-season plans for next year, for this upcoming off-season? Do you have anything interesting going on, whether it's hockey related or non-hockey related? And what do you like kind of want to work on for your sophomore season?
Yeah, definitely. I'll probably stay here until about May, and I'm taking nursing, so obviously it's a pretty busy schedule. And then I have to do one online class just because it didn't work with my hockey schedule, so I'll just take it during the summertime, and then I'll probably go home and be a hockey instructor at home, and then kind of be really low key. And this summer, I kind of want to work on more of like my speed and my agility. I think that strength is a huge thing too, but you gotta be strong, but you also gotta be quick in this league. So I think that I'm gonna focus a lot on that this summer.
Yeah, do you think being a hockey instructor kind of helps your development, especially preparing for an upcoming year in college hockey? Just because I feel like you might learn a few things that you might not learn as a player versus a coach.
Yeah, definitely. And a huge aspect of being a hockey coach is I want to kind of help younger girls get more into it. And growing up, I never had very many like female role models. So I think that to have some girls locally that you can kind of lean on to get some more advice and some help, I think is huge. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, let's start off talking about the beginning of your hockey career and kind of working all the way up to where you are now today. So you're from Thunder Bay, Ontario. Talk about growing up there and how'd you start playing hockey?
I actually started playing hockey in my front yard on my pond. I think that's kind of where my brother and I both started. We just kind of got on our skates and we tried to skate the best we could. And then after that, we played just Timbits. And I wasn't a huge fan of hockey. I will say that when I first started playing. And then once I kind of got into it and met new friends, it definitely motivated me more and like made me want to play more. But yeah, Thunder Bay was a great place to grow up and play hockey. It's pretty hockey orientated, and there's always great fans. And it's a pretty small town considering Ontario is a pretty big province. So it was definitely very enjoyable to play in that city.
Yeah. I guess like, was there any cool pond hockey stories that you have with your brother? I'm assuming was a lot of competitiveness going on in those games growing up.
Yeah, if they didn't end in like us yelling at each other, usually like we're best friends. But yeah, it's usually like I was forward growing up, and then he was D, so usually like one-on-ones, kind of stuff like that, which usually ended up with us like fighting over something. But then when I switched to D, we kind of just worked on stuff together, which was very helpful. He's always been helpful over the years.
Now, who was your favorite player growing up? Was it someone in the NHL? Was it a women's hockey player on the national team? Like, who did you kind of idolize when you were a kid?
I mean, I've always said this, even when I was little. My favorite hockey player is my brother. But other than that, I would say Renata Fast or Marie-Philippe Poulin. Another one is Haley Irwin, probably. She's a Thunder Bay native too. So I think that that's huge to have locals. But again, when I was younger, I didn't know many other hockey players about my brother. So he was always a huge one of mine.
And was it cool seeing those players win the gold medal? I'm just curious what your reaction was to it, especially as a Canadian.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's not very many Canadians on my team this year, so we definitely got a high five from our coaches when we won. But it's always enjoyable to watch the Canada-US game. They're always very competitive, and it can go both ways. So
And do you think Marie-Philip Poulin is the best women's hockey player of all time just because of the resume that she has? I've heard a lot of people talk about that. I'm just curious from your opinion if you think she is the best player of all time for women's hockey.
yeah, I would definitely say she's a phenomenal leader on the ice, and not just like the points she puts up. I think that she does a lot for the community and the younger girls coming up, and I think that's a huge part of just like being a good person, but also a good hockey player. So she kind of checks all those boxes off.
Now, before college, you played for the Thunder Bay Queens. Talk about your experience with that team and what'd you take away from it?
Yeah, so I played for the Queens for 5 or 6 years, and it was great. I met lots of like my closest friends now, and I have lots of memories playing with them. I learned a lot about like just like growing up as an individual and um, being organized. And like when we travel, it was kind of a shock, just especially going into high school. We weren't used to that kind of stuff, so we dealt a lot with like time management and adversity and all that kind of stuff. So I think it was a huge stepping stone for me as a person and a player. So there are definitely some great moments I've had with the Queens.
And then you went on to play in the PWHL for the Etobicoke Dolphins. Hopefully, I pronounced that name correctly.
You did. That was pretty impressive, actually.
So, how did you get the opportunity to play in that league and play with Etobicoke?
So I went to the summer games my U16 year, and that just kind of opened a couple of doors for me as a player. And obviously at 16, I wasn't really ready to move away, but I also wanted to survey my options and see kind of what I wanted to do and if hockey was something I wanted to take to the next level. And I think that that put me in a really good spot where I could stay here and play, or I could go away. And then I ended up affiliating for Etobicoke my second year of midget, and I played a couple games, and it was just awesome. Like the speed was there, the physicality was there, and everything that I kind of wanted to do. And it was all there. The facility the Dolphins play in is amazing. The staff is great too. So it just seemed pretty fitting to give it a try. And in my last year of midget and of high school, I just kind of thought it's nothing's better than stepping out of your comfort zone. And yeah, it was great.
And talk about your a little more about your experience with the Etobicoke and in the PWHL. Like, what did you take away from that experience, and kind of how did it help prepare you for college hockey with Bemidji?
Yeah, and I would say it was kind of an unusual year. It was like the middle, or it was kind of the start of the pandemic. So I moved away at 17, and that wasn't easy. But then also add like global pandemic on it wasn't easy at all. But it was great. I think that I made do with what I had there, and that was like the family that I built from my teammates and my billet family. They made me very comfortable, and it made me enjoy it even more. I think that the staff and the program did a great job of making us feel comfortable, just never knowing like if we're ever gonna have to go home. Like everything was very uncertain, and I feel like I developed a lot as a player, but like as a person too. And I kind of took away like they give you everything you need to be successful, and it's just kind of how you use it and kind of what you do with that that will reflect on you. So I have nothing but good things to say about the Etobicoke program.
And what's the best memory you have with the Etobicoke? Is it an off the ice thing? Is it something you might have done on the ice? Like, what's the best memory you can think of when you look back on that time period of your career?
I would say definitely we did like this amazing race downtown Toronto, and I love downtown Toronto. So it was fun to see like a couple different things that I've never seen. When you're away for hockey, you're not really like in the downtown Toronto. You just go from the rink to the hotel and somewhere to eat eventually. But it was super nice to get with the girls. We were split up into teams, and it was fun to do that. You had like some of the coaches involved, the trainers, and yeah, it was definitely a nice break from the craziness of like wearing masks. We were all outside. Like it was great. That was definitely something that I'll never forget. And I think our team grew closer just because even during the season, we were only practicing with like 7 girls on the ice at a time. So we're never like all together. When we were in this environment, we were all together, and it was awesome.
What were some of the activities you got to do in the amazing race? That sounds fun.
So it was like it was all over downtown Toronto. So you'd have to go to like the Billy Bishop Airport, and you'd have to like sing a verse of a song or something, and then you would go to the bus, whatever the bus thing is, and you'd have to go and stack up cans of something. It was just all different, like really random things that you would never like think of doing. But it was very fun and it kept us on our toes, and it was awesome.
How'd you get around downtown Toronto? Like, did you have to drive everywhere, like, or was it a lot of walking on that day?
Oh, it was like running. I think
Uh,
I wore like a long sleeve shirt and a vest and a pair of long like pants, and I was like dripping sweat. And that was like everyone, no matter what we wore, like we were running all over. And but yeah, it was a blast for sure.
did you get to have a partner for that? Because I know in the Amazing Race, you usually have someone you get to work with. Did you have
Yeah,
to do it individually, or did you have a partner? That must have been
no,
better.
yeah, no. We had like groups. We had like larger groups. It wasn't like just us by ourselves. I think there could have been like 5 girls in each group or 5 or 6 ish, but yeah, you wouldn't go down. I would get lost for sure.
Yeah. Now, how now just talking about the one thing that I found interesting about yourself was you didn't play any hockey last year before heading
No.
off to college. So my
Mhm.
question is, what did you do during that time period when you weren't playing any hockey, and how did you kind of mentally handle it? Because at the beginning of the season, there was kind of hope that your team would play, and then as the season kind of went on, that kind of hope started to get lost, and not a lot of players were in that position before of not playing a season before heading off to college. So how did you handle it, and what did you do during that time period of not playing?
Yeah, I think so. From August to December, I was in Toronto. So again, it was just like a kind of like a regular COVID season, I guess. You played a couple 4-on-4 games, but those got shut down pretty quickly. And then I ended up coming home, and they just announced that they were canceling hockey. So I got all my stuff from Toronto shipped back to Thunder Bay. And at the start, I would just do like home workouts. So like, and I didn't have very many weights. Like I always had a gym to go to, so I would never need like at home stuff to do. So I was using like gas cans like full of gas and like propane tanks like to use to lift. It was actually like hilarious like looking back at it, but I just kind of made do with what I had. Um and then whenever I got more like nervous about not being able to skate, then I got a pair of Mars blades, and my trainer and I, we would do stuff um off ice with like stick handling and that kind of stuff. But again, nothing kind of like relates as much as being on the ice and actually shooting a puck on the ice surface. But we kind of did that stuff for a bit, and then they started opening a couple things up for like private rinks in the GTA and Ottawa area. So I ended up going and staying down with my best friend in Ottawa, and kind of got a little vacation and kind of had some fun. But we also trained a lot, so it was nice to. She was actually on my Vaslette. I was staying with her and trained with her, so it was fun to do that. And it was a little break from COVID, and we had some fun, but we still did our fair share of sweating. So it was really fun.
Yeah. And I guess like is it weird doing how did you like was there any benefit I guess doing at home workouts versus being in a gym? Because I feel like at least for at home workouts you're doing a lot of body weight stuff, so it makes your muscles I guess more stronger in some ways, and it could
Mhm.
also help prevent injuries. That's what I heard. I don't know if you had that perspective doing those at
Yeah.
home workouts at all.
Yeah. I think that I was more thinking just as long as I feel like I'm getting a sweat and I'm like working hard, I wasn't really too concerned with what I was doing. But I had a great trainer. He sent me a workout plan, and I kind of did what I had. So he was a huge help for me just like throughout that whole like block where it was everything was completely closed, and the weather wasn't great too. So I kind of had to do things inside and in my garage and stuff like that. So again, he was great with kind of giving me options of what I could do with like a towel or like hamstring slides, whatever the case was. So yeah, he was great with that.
Now, another thing you got to do before heading off to college hockey is you got invited to some national team camps with Canada. I just want to ask, what was it like to be invited to those, and what's it? I guess what's it like representing your country on that type of stage? That must feel pretty cool for yourself.
Yeah, it was definitely an amazing opportunity. I can still remember like my reaction when I saw the email. I was like, this has to be wrong. This has to be like a spam. Like, and then I actually like looked at it, and it was real, and it was awesome. But yeah, going there was amazing, and I was there for I think we were there for like 10 days ish. And it was cool because we were all kind of in the same bubble. So we're with the U18s, and then we were with the U22s, and then also the national camp. So we'd go and we'd go to the rink early and we could watch the national team play or whatever the case was. So it was cool to just kind of have everyone there at the same time. And obviously the circumstances were a little different than a regular year, but it was awesome that they could bring us down there and let the girls that didn't get the experience because of COVID have the opportunity to play and kind of showcase their skills. And it was awesome. I've met some of my closest friends there from all around Canada, which is even cooler. And that just kind of makes me more excited and pushes me harder so I can hopefully make another camp eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, and did you get to play against the national team, or you only got to watch?
No, yeah, we didn't get to play against them. That was like the U22, so I was too
Oh,
young for that. But we played against the U18 team. So there was one next gen team, and there was the red and white U18 team. So we played against both of them.
yeah, that must have been nice too, just because not having played in quite some time to get that experience must have been beneficial, especially since you're heading into college hockey. And obviously, the pace of the game, just the decision making you have to make, is much more different than it is in juniors. So that must have been nice to have that experience to help prepare you a little bit of what the college game was going to be like.
Absolutely.
Now, talk a little bit about your recruitment process with Bemidji. Let's start talking about your college hockey experience for a little bit. What was that process like for yourself, and what made you want to go to Bemidji versus other schools you might have talked to at that time?
Yeah, it was actually, I have been to Bemidji before, and I was 9 years old and I came with my brother's hockey team. And I remember going into the room, the women's hockey room, and just like the way that the logo like was, everything else was dark, but then the light was shining down the logo. It made it seem like when I was 9 that it was like the coolest rink ever, which it is, and we're very fortunate to have the facility that we do. Um, and it was just crazy being in there, and I was like, I want to go here, Mom. Like, actually I wanted to go to the NHL, and then my mom told me I couldn't. So I was like, Mom, I'll go here. If I can't play in the NHL, I would love to go here. And I was only 9, so like everyone was like, okay, Kendra. Like, and then eventually I started playing like Queens, and we get exposure when we go to like the Toronto area and Stony Creek tournaments or whatever. And at the time I was a forward, so I went to the summer games and I got some exposure there. And then I was trying out for the provincial team my rookie year, and I switched to D at that point. So it was kind of just like, hey, like, by the way, I'm switching to D. And they're like, okay, like, and but again, the recruitment process was great all the way through. Um, and the reason I picked Bemidji is it's a lot like home, and obviously being here for 4 years, I want to feel like I'm at home. And when I came here, just like move in, everyone was very welcoming. The girls were always very good about making all of us feel at home. And um, yeah, I am so happy that I'm here, and I definitely made the right choice.
And what was the biggest adjustment you had to make to college? Was it the speed of the game? Was it the physicality of the game? Was it balancing both hockey and school? Or it could have been something else just because you didn't play the year before college hockey. So I guess what was the biggest adjustment you had to make? And just talk about the adjustments you had to make heading from juniors to college hockey.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty common like thing, but it's a speed. Like, it doesn't matter who you're playing; they're all going to be flat, fast. And one thing I did like was how physical people were, and how physical the girls were, and how the refs kind of let you play. I've always been like pretty physical growing up, and as a result, I'd get a penalty, and it just like frustrated me. So it's nice to be in a league where they let you play. But it's crazy how fast it is, and especially not after playing a year. I think that the first couple games I was on my heels just because I was like, wow, it's been a while. But
Mhm.
other than that, I would say the speed and just this overall skill. Like an 18-year-old was like when we play against like the older girls are like 23, they're older. So like I think that that was a huge thing too, is just getting used to it, but not being too scared and not playing on your heels too much, because you'll make more mistakes playing on your heels than you will on your toes. So once I got a couple games under me, I felt a lot more comfortable, and um, it went from there.
Yeah, and talk about the physicality in the WCHA just because it's one of the more physical leagues in women's college hockey. And do you think there should be hitting allowed in women's college hockey? I'm just curious your perspective on it because, at least for me, I think it should be allowed just because I think it'll make refereeing the game easier because I feel like as a player, you shouldn't be worried about who's refereeing a game because I feel like some refs are very strict on what's a check and what's not a check. And then some refs are kind of more loose about it. And I feel like as a player, I don't want to change my game depending on who's refereeing the game. I don't think that's fair. So that's why I personally believe it should be allowed. But I'm just curious about your perspective because obviously you play the game.
Yeah. I think that like even watching like junior like men's games and stuff like that, when you get to like a high level where it's like quick, you don't really have like that much time to like make a huge open ice hit or like make a, it's more of just like being physical, I think. So I don't think that it would be a bad idea, just to have like a baseline. Okay, this is not a penalty if it's a hit, but obviously like a dirty hit's a dirty hit. But I personally like have never been bothered if someone hits me because I respect them that they can play tough, and I would probably do the exact same thing to them. But it's just like when you get to like the fast level, there's not much time to like really make those big hits. So for me, I don't think it would really be a huge difference anyways.
Yeah. Have you ever thrown any big checks in your career that the ref might have missed? I feel like playing
um,
hockey for so long, you might have bodied someone by mistake.
yeah. Well, it happens or whatever. I wouldn't say any like open ice hits like that, but like against the boards, if you're trying to like close someone off, it's like happened a couple of times, but nothing that like stands out to me. I'm
Hmm.
pretty low key if I do something or not.
Yeah. Now, obviously, talk about playing in the WCHA and just the competition you face every night. It's arguably the best conference in college hockey, and I think it's been proven with two teams making the Frozen Four. So, just talk about, from your perspective, just what's it like playing in that conference.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, and I think every night there's opportunity for exposure, and you kind of just gotta play your best every night and give every shift anyways because it is a great league and there's no bad team or there's no weak team. So you can't underestimate anyone, and that shows from the amount of upsets we've had this year, um, with like against us. But it's definitely a very interesting league to play in, and I'm happy that I chose this league.
Now, one of my favorite games to watch from this past season was when your team beat Clarkson at Bemidji. Talk about that game from your perspective and what did you take away from it, and how good did it feel to upset a top team like Clarkson? And how do you think that's going to help your team moving forward in your next 3 years with Bemidji?
Yeah, I think that that was one of our first games, and um, I forget what the statistic was, but we hadn't beat them in a long time. But I think that that was a huge confidence booster for us too. Just as a team, we're a pretty young team, and it was our home series, so that was really nice to be able to win in front of our crowd. Um, but yeah, I think that we played a very consistent game that even that series, I think we tied and then we won the next game. So um, it was a very consistent weekend for us, and I think that that's when we play our best is when we don't take any shifts or periods off. So that was our huge thing that we went off of for a couple like next weekends that we had. Just was let's play like we did this time. So yeah.
Your team also had a 4-game winning streak before heading into the Wisconsin series in the first half of your season. So I kind of want to ask you, what was the key to your team's consistency during that winning streak? Because it seemed like your team had kind of spurts of some winning streaks throughout the regular season this past season.
Yeah, for sure. I think lots of that came from just being consistent. We always talk about that in the dressing room. We set like mini goals in between warm-ups in the first period. And I think it's just meeting those little goals that we focus on. And then when we get away from like not focusing on those goals, then that's when, um, we aren't being consistent. So that was a huge thing for us was just like focusing on the little things and making sure we have girls in front of the net or making the clean breakout pass. I think that that really helped us with our win streak this season.
Now, in the WCHA playoffs, you lost a series to Wisconsin, which ended your team season. So my question to you is just talk about what you took away from that series and how are you going to use it for next season to make sure your team has more playoff success when you face a team like that.
Yeah, I think that honestly we had a really great series against them. We definitely had them on their heels a couple times, which was huge for us. And I think that the bottom line is like you're not going to win if you can't score. So we just need to find a way to score more often um, and making sure that we're not getting hemmed in our end, short shifts, whatever the case is. But that's a huge rink to play in, and the crowd is insane. So I think that just not getting ahead of ourselves will help with everything. But again, it's just making sure we can put the puck in the net any way that we can.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you brought them to a shootout in their building earlier in the season, if I'm correct?
Yeah, it was our first. It was our Saturday game. We played Saturday, Sunday. It was our Saturday game, and yeah, that was one of the most enjoyable games, other than the Ohio game that we played at home when we beat them. That was one of the most enjoyable games. It's upsets are fun. I'll tell you, upsets are fun, and winning is fun in general. So that was a blast.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask you about that Ohio State game. You kind of answered a little bit of my next question, but talk about that upset and what it meant to your team, especially since it was kind of weird them pulling the goalie with the tie game. It's something I've never seen before. What was your reaction to that on the bench as a player? Did you even think that was real? And I guess talk about what the team's reaction was after that win.
Yeah, so it was actually they were trying to secure a spot for playoffs. So they were doing that. So like they needed to win all their next games. So there was I honestly don't even know how many seconds there was left, but I was the right D and I looked at Paige Beebe and I was like, there's an open net. Like there's how many ever seconds left, and they had a great scoring chance to put them ahead of us. And then Kerrigan made an insane save, and then Paige flung it down the ice, and we scored, and it went in, and I, like, jumped on Paige, and I was like, oh my God, this just happened. Like, it was awesome, especially in our home rink. Like, there wasn't, like, it wasn't packed, but it sure seemed like it was. And it was definitely my favorite hockey memory I've ever had.
Yeah, definitely one of the best empty net goals too. Usually those are not as exciting as that one, so that must have been cool for yourself as
Totally.
well.
Yeah.
Now, talk about the senior class and the fifth years. How did they help your transition to college hockey?
Like, so much. I love my seniors. I love the fifth years. They were great. I think that they just were good people off the ice, which helped on the ice too. Like they never threw judgment at us. They knew that we're a new class, a very large class at most. So um, they were an amazing leadership group. I think that all of them had their roles and they played them phenomenally. But yeah, they're definitely a huge part of our team, and it's crazy to do our spring workouts and they're not there. Like I shared a weight rack with two of the fifth years, and I just like enjoyed their personalities. They were all very different, and they all were just great people, and they'll definitely be missed on our team.
So they don't do the workouts with you during the spring. That's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, I think that they can, but
Mhm.
some girls like are in the cities right now doing certain internships or whatever they need to do. But I think that they do have the option, and they'll probably end up coming back anyways. But it just kind of some girls have to do certain things for their
Yeah.
majors. So.
Yeah, well, I understand that, but that must be weird not having them there. And talking to
Oh
one of
yeah,
your fifth years, they said that your freshman class was very lively, and really brought a lot of energy to the locker room. Just talk
yeah.
about your freshman class and just what you guys, how did you guys try to get to know each other? I guess since you didn't really get to like see each other before the season started, since I feel like most teams have like some sort of summer thing they make the freshmen do.
Yeah, so we have a very large, like we have a 9 class of freshmen. So I mean, we're pretty loud because there's lots of us, and we do have a lot of personalities. We have pretty quiet ones, we have some not so quiet ones, but we have a great class. I think that considering how large our class is, we get along very well, and they make going to the rink so much fun. And even just living in a dorm room, it's not always great, but they make it fun. And you have a couple girls on your floor, and we have 2 floors, so we have 4 and 5, and we kind of are separated all throughout, but you live with your teammate, your D partner, or whatever, and it makes life a lot funner, more fun.
Mhm. And are you more of the quiet one, or are you more of one of the not so quiet ones on the team?
I would probably say I'm quiet, but my friends don't think I'm quiet. I can be both. I can play both roles, but I'm usually not as quiet as I usually would be.
Now, what is the biggest thing I guess you learned this season, and what was the biggest improvement you made this season in your first year in college hockey?
I think that it's just like you can't take a shift off. Um, you see how skilled and fast these girls are. Um, they can change the game so quickly. So I think just like always being on your toes and like being ready for just about anything on ice, off ice. I would just say like always working hard, and even just being around the girls that I'm around. you're never like not smiling, which is a great atmosphere to be in, and we all enjoy being around each other, so that's huge. But yeah, it's definitely one of the best environments I've ever been in.
Now we're now in the segment I like to call the non-hockey segment, where I ask you some non-hockey questions just to get to know you a little bit more off the ice. So my first question to you is, which arena has the best warm-up mix in your opinion?
I would say UMD's. They have a really good rock playlist.
Oh,
Like it's just very like
ah,
all over the place. It's very
right.
like they have some rap, but then they have some like fun songs, some pop up songs. So yeah.
I think the variety is good. That's what makes a good warm-up mix, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So, which road rink has the best visiting locker room? Because I feel like a lot of them, from the photos I've seen, some of these visiting locker rooms are brutal. It looks like. So, which one has the best one in your opinion?
Ours, like I can't even say theirs. I like Wisconsin's isn't terrible. I don't mind theirs. St. Cloud's isn't bad, but we definitely have the best away locker room in the
Have you been in
conference
it
or in the
before?
nation.
Have you
In
been in
the
it before?
in
Oh,
ours, yeah,
yeah.
we like we'll do like D meetings in there sometimes
Oh,
at the
okay.
start of the year in them, and I was like, if only other teams had these. Like they must love coming to our room because we do have a very nice facility. So we do have a very nice visiting locker room.
What's the worst visiting locker room then?
I want to say St. Thomas, but like they're in high school hockey rink, so um, I would say it was the Gophers.
Oh,
We were
really?
like, yeah, we were like separated. We have a big team though too, so like there were some girls like in stalls, but then some of us were on chairs, and then there were some girls in like another dressing room too. So it's just not as big as like we'd like it.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising because I thought the
Mhm.
Gophers would have a really good one since they're one of the
Mhm.
bigger teams in the WCHA. So that's actually surprising to me.
Yeah,
Now, what is your guilty pleasure song, getting back to the music topic?
I would say part of the USA. I
Hmm.
think it's Canadian, and but it's definitely like I love Miley Cyrus. She's a great singer. I can listen to her her like sad songs. I can listen to her pump up songs, like Party in the USA for sure.
That's kind of funny hearing it from a Canadian player. Mostly the US ones say that. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think for my guilty pleasure song, it'll probably be like, I don't know, probably like Boyfriend by Big Time Rush. That song's always gets me hyped up, but I'll never like play it or act like I like it in front of other people.
That's fair. I could see that.
So next question is, if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself and why?
Like who would I want to play
Like,
me?
yeah, in your own movie, if
Okay.
there was ever
Okay.
one that was made.
So probably my mom. Like I feel like she'd give the most like honest um version of me. Like if I'm not with her, I'm talking to her on the phone or on FaceTime. So I feel like she'd be pretty brutally honest. So I'd be interested to see like what she thinks of me.
Yeah, that's a good answer. What is the craziest dream you've ever had?
I think it was so I wear contacts. So I didn't have my contacts on. It was during a game, so I didn't have my contacts in. I think I was only wearing one skate. I couldn't find my glove, and I was just frustrated. And it's one of those dreams you like obviously you can't do anything about it, but it was just like I was personally as I was sleeping, I was very frustrated with myself.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know. I woke up one time in a dream. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, where you're dreaming about something, then you wake up and you're still in a dream. So that's probably the weirdest one I had because I was just so confused when I woke up.
Oh yeah, and even with like these dorm rooms, so my roommate and I, we both have like clip-on fans.
Hmm.
So sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'll think like the clip-on fan is like a person's head because it's circular, and I will get so freaked out, and then I'll look across and I'll see McKenna's fan, and I'm like, there's another person there, and then I'll go back to bed. It's not a person, but it freaks me out. So.
Oh, don't worry. I was on vacation one time growing up, and I remember I woke up, and it was like the first night we were at this house. And since
Mhm.
I'm not usually used to waking up there, I woke up and I like freaked out for like the first like 10 seconds because I had no clue where I was. And I was like, oh, that's right, we're on vacation. It took my brain a little bit to process, but that was like one of the scariest moments of my life.
Yeah.
Now, which teammate is the funniest on Bemidji women's hockey? Because obviously you said there's a lot of personalities on the team. I'm curious who's the funniest in your opinion.
Yeah, I would say they're two very different personalities, but I would say either Chloe Lund or Hannah Hoganson. They're very like different, but they're like humor is like so entertaining.
Now, if you had to choose any teammate to cook a meal for yourself, which teammate would you pick?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I would say Claudia Verkerke. She was our captain this year. We actually like made a dinner together and it was really good. So I'd probably give her another shot.
Now, which teammate is the best road roommate? Because I know a lot of you guys you switch roommates for when you go to away games. So I'm curious, like, which one's your favorite one to do it for a road game?
Yeah, we've had like numerous different we've had a couple different ones, but I would say either Kayla Santel, she was like my most consistent roommate, and then I also had Chloe Lund, which you can never go wrong with Chloe. So
Now, you obviously have the best style on the team, but besides yourself, who has the best style on Bemidji State women's hockey?
I would say Race Hunt. Um she can rock a pony, she can rock a bun, she can rock a braid. I think, and she's Canadian, so if you're Canadian, you rock. So definitely her.
Awesome, awesome. And then final non-hockey question is, if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
I don't know. That's a good question. This is so basic, but like my papa probably. I love my
Mhm.
papa. He's my best friend. I would have lunch with him any day of the week.
That's awesome. Now, getting back to some hockey questions. First one is, what advice would you give a younger player who's trying to pursue a career in D1 college hockey?
I would say that the off ice portion of hockey is just as important as the on ice. I think that you grow obviously physically and mentally off ice just as much as you do on ice. So that was one thing that I really enjoyed growing up playing hockey is like doing off ice fitness stuff, and still even I'll be here and I'll love fitness testing. I think that it's fun, and it's a even in Bemidji, like we always push like each other, and it's a very like healthy competition environment. So I would say just like focusing on the off and on ice stuff is huge.
Now, what should be done to help grow women's hockey, in your opinion?
Definitely doing more events like a skills competition, or how they did the one where the All Star tournament, or even PWHPA. They're doing lots of different stuff with that, which I think is huge. And just having more media stuff involved with women's hockey is going to obviously grow it, because if not everyone, most people are on social media and they're going to see it. So um, having stuff like that for women's hockey is huge.
Well, before we let you go, do you have any shout outs you want to give to any of your teammates, family members, friends? I know you mentioned a few people throughout the interview, but if there's anyone you forgot to mention, feel free to shout them out now. Or if you want to shout out someone again, feel free to do that.
Yeah, I would say I told my friends and they were like, you have to give me a shout out. So Taylor Larson, hi Taylor, and then Alyssa Watkins, Mac Deering. They want a shout out and then they are. So they own the
Awesome.
Starbucks. And then my mom and my dad, my brother, they rock too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Kendra. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to myself, and I wish you nothing but the best for this off season. And hey, if Bemidji State ever comes out east, I'd love to see your team play in person. That will be fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.